place where it starts happening before, and everybody's moving in. So and so it's 2017 or 2016, 2017, 2018, somewhere in there. And when this happens, that house, the soul is going to, the Paradars are going to use that house that's being built. Because we are right now in this we're getting close to that last phase. Now when that last phase, when the return of the Paradars comes, that's going to descend from up above. There's going to descend a light of clarity. A light of clarity. And that light's going to come down through the cosmic tree of light. It's going to come down through it. Because though that channel was created back at the Cosmic Day, to where it can come down, and it'll come all the way down. And what it will do is it will fructify, for lack of a better word, the house that you've built, the house of light that you've built within your soul. This S-light, this room. Now we're getting close to 2016, 2017 right now. This is 2012, the beginning of 2012, using the CE calendar. And so, you know, that's just four years away. So we're getting close to that. So it makes sense that this house is finally becoming ready. Because what will happen, what happens, like I said, that light's going to come down, and it's going to essentially invigorate this, it's going to quicken this house, so that the Paradars can again manifest to man. And that's the return of the Paradars. And that's been written about in a paper on the return of the Paradars. And so that can be referred to for more understanding of that. And essentially then is this house of light that we're building, this East house of light that man has been building and slowly working on it since the time since the time of Cosmon began, but internally, because it switched from external when the angels withdrew in 1882. It switched to an internal. Man had to build it himself, so it was no longer externally illuminated. He had to figure out how to get it illuminated himself and how to build it and all that stuff. So, and he's been slowly working on it and working toward this. And the angels of Jehovah, through his Ashurs and his lords and all that, have put a lot of time into helping people to learn how to do this, because they're concerned about our soul growth, more so than the trivial or petty things that we think are so important but really aren't. Well, anyway, because this light, this house, now it doesn't, I say house or room, but essentially because it can start out as a room, and then as we grow in our soul and everything, it can become a house. Well, but that's just the individual. But this can also happen collectively. And when they get together collectively, which happens in the future beyond what we're talking about here, but not that far in the future, then that's what Joshu of old meant when he said that there are many mansions in my Father's kingdom. Because when these houses come together, these S-lights within which our soul lives, then they form a collective, a mansion. And there are many of these groups that come together. And after the return of the Paradars, people will start moving toward well, first of all, toward building their S-light, the S-light in their house within, because many of them have neglected that. Those who have been diligent with the faithless discipline over all these years and all that, they're at the front end. They're the pioneers. They're the ones who will form like a template, so to speak, or a font from which people draw inspiration and strength and hope. And so, but everybody is going to come to that sooner or later, but it just takes some longer than others, and other people that are there first. But what happens with the return of the paradise, when that light comes down everything, it's going to quicken the light that's in the house that's crystallized or partly crystallized. That will become quickened. And so it's important before the return of the paradise, because never before in history, is my understanding of it, is never before in history, in Earth's history, has it been possible to advance so quickly in such a short time that man can do this on his own. Because although after the return of the paradise, man will be able to build his house, it's still not going to be necessarily easier, and at least initially, to build this house than it is even right now today. And that's because you have the inorganic first resurrection in charge. The Republic Social Order is in charge until the fraternity phase in 2049. But we are in a time of transition from 1949 to 2049, because the organic first resurrection itself is a transition phase from the inorganic first resurrection to the second resurrection. Okay, it means we're aligning ourselves to the light of the Creator and aligning ourselves to the Creator Himself. That's what the organic first resurrection means, aligning ourselves to that. And so they're just like their parents who don't care for their children, or feel that, or they try to thwart their children's plan because of their own selfish needs or whatever. The social orders can be that same way. The inorganic first resurrection can be the same way. And so, but that's going to be changing after the return of the paradise, because the light of the paradise. Now, people who've done some good in the past, they're still going to get quickened with the light of the paradise, only they're going to be able to just quicken with whatever light they have within them. And it might not be much, but it's still going to be enough for the paradise, for man to have like an objective view of where he is in the world, particularly between what is righteous and what is not, what is right and what is wrong. That's going to become crystal clear to him objectively compared to in the past, so that he won't be able to hide from himself or lie to himself, because he'll perceive that. Now, the paradise are going to manifest at least to that extent to people, but it can be so much more for those who are attuned to Jehovah and who have been building their S-house within them, in their souls, because they're just, wow, it's like a flower blossoming out into a new world. So during this transition time, so you're going to have people who get quickened because they have some light in them, and they're going to want to reform the social order. They're going to want to say, well, look, we can make laws, outlawing this and outlawing that and governing this and governing that, and they're cutting us short. They're cutting short the organic first resurrection. They won't say it in those words, but that's the essence of their meaning. The governments are cutting short the growth of the organic first resurrection, and we want to stop that. So we'll change the laws to do that. And so you'll have reformers, a big group of reformers, who will essentially be what I would call, well, I don't want to use the word spiritualist, because they will say they're spiritual. Yes, I'm spiritual, and I'm doing this for spiritual reasons. But there's a difference. There's a difference between being spiritual, which is what, by the way, what the fraternity social order is going to start out being. It's going to be like in the 60s and 70s, for those of you who lived through those times in the 1960s and 1970s, when people went out and tried to live in community, and they caught the essence of what it means to live in fraternity.